All right. So welcome to the Horizon Media Group podcast. We are here for a very special episode talking one of my favorite things, or two of my favorite things, coffee, entrepreneurship, all those great things. Welcome. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
I'm Corey from Snowbird Coffee.
And I'm Missy from Snowbird Mountain Coffee.
Awesome. Thank you guys for coming down. We met each other doing the Smoky Mountain Secrets highlight, which if you have not checked that out, you guys need to check it out. We had some great coffee. We had some great conversation, which was really, really, really awesome. And then, we just hit it off, and I want to talk to you guys more. Mm-hmm. And I kind of want to start things off, just kind of where did the love of coffee come from?
She actually used to hate coffee.
I
Quite ironically.
did not drink coffee until we moved into an old farmhouse. And we were renovating it, and I just could not keep up. And before that, so we had our son in 2009, and I had a spinal headache, and I could not get out of the bed because we didn't know what was going on. And he was like, I think this is what you have. You need to drink all of this coffee. And so I was just like laying down in the bed. All of the lights were off. I couldn't sit up. And I'm just like trying to down this coffee, and I'm like gagging. It was just...
To be fair, I guess caffeine restricts blood vessels. And so the thought was, if you've got this terrible headache, you can get high doses of caffeine, restrict the blood vessels, and makes the headache go away. I think the doctor told me that too. It's not like something I made up. Right?
I just thought he WebMD'd it. That's all I thought. But so we tried that, and then that didn't work, and I still ended up having to go to the hospital. And the hospital ended up putting me on like 1,000 milligrams, 7-hour drip, and that's how they got rid of it.
Of caffeine?
Of caffeine.
Which is literally like 20 cups of coffee, I think. It's around 50 milligrams in a cup, if I remember right.
And then after that, I was just like, I just can't do this. I just can't do this. And then we started the renovation on the house a couple years later. And I think at that point we had like an espresso machine at the house, or he was doing pour over. He was doing something other than just like a regular drip.
I can trace all of mine back. So I worked shift work in paper mills like for 15 or 16 years before we moved out here. That's what I did. Okay. And so as a result of working night shift and stuff like that, like you have a very intimate relationship with caffeine. So
you get to know each other really well. Yeah.
It's like you almost have to. But there's people that raw dog it, man, but I don't know how they do it. Like I just don't understand it. But I met a guy when we moved to Indiana. And his story sounds kind of like we were talking earlier about how when he went to college, started kind of exploring different cultural things and got into coffee. And so he brought in a French press, and I had never had French press coffee before. And I tried it, and it was like having coffee for the first time. I was like, oh my God, you can actually taste things other than just, like burnt coffee taste, right? Because prior to that, it was just, cheap coffee, drip machine, stuff like that. And so that's what really got me started exploring different preparation methods, and then eventually roasting my own coffee to just, further down the rabbit hole, right?
That's what's really cool. And I think that's what I enjoy about Snowbird, is because for me, as someone who enjoys coffee and connoisseur is such a funny word, but as someone who just goes and enjoys to try different coffee, a bunch of different places, I love those experiences of like the first time, there's a clear difference between an espresso drink and a drip or whatever, or even French press. But you have that sip, you're like, this is like having a new cup of coffee. I get to experience, and I experienced that same moment when I went to Snowbird, because you have such a diverse menu as well. So even for people who enjoy coffee, and we were talking earlier, me and my wife, when we were in college, of the whole Knoxville, East Tennessee area, went on a little trip. It was every Friday we would have a study time, but we would do a study time at a different coffee place.
I think that's so cool, man.
It was awesome. Fun. It was really neat. And that really helped me, it just entrenched that love of coffee into me. She's still not a big fan, but she's getting there. She's a big London fog gal,
that's a good thing. I like that one.
But she's getting there, so she's on the path. But, I've been all around to all these different coffee shops, and genuinely, you have the most creative and fun menu that I have seen anywhere. And I have a question as far as the first shop was in Newport, and you had that menu in Newport. What was the thought process behind that menu? I mean, it'd be very easy just to do. I mean, you don't think of Newport being like this. Oh, I'm going to try this. I want to try the Chemist. It's got cayenne pepper in it. You know what I'm saying? Like I could see some new cool like third age coffee shop here in Knoxville being like, yeah, try the Cubano. It's got salt in it, right? But it's like it's cool because it's wholesome and it's real. And it's you guys, and it's in Newport. What was the thought process? Did you guys even see it as risky as putting those kind of drinks on the menu?
So one of our favorite things, because we've lived in a couple different states and then we've traveled just a little bit. We haven't traveled much, but is going to coffee shops. And I drag him literally, like, I don't want a date or like a movie and dinner kind of a date. Let's go to a coffee shop.
Yes.
And so that's just like always been our thing. And so some of them are just kind of inspiration from some of the drinks that we've seen at some of our favorite coffee shops all over. Some of it is just almost like baking, just what flavor profiles kind of go good together when you're baking.
Yeah, all that's 100% her. Like I just roast the beans. She actually makes them taste good.
So, but I mean, so when we did the food truck, that was a great learning experience for us because we were able to see what do people like, because our food truck was like cold brew, it had pour over on it, all of this stuff. We had this idea of what we wanted to do. We wanted to do this high-end elevated coffee. And we found out that not a lot of people want that.
Yeah.
And so they wanted different things. So our menu is kind of like a blend. So you have the Alchemist, you have the Cubano, you have that kind of stuff that the people who want to taste the coffee or want a little bit more of a fancier kind of drink can get. But then if you are just like a white mocha kind of girl, or you want the caffeine, you just don't want to taste it, you can get the Jitterbug or something like that. So we try to just kind of, I don't know, come up with a menu that like anybody that comes in can find something that they like.
It kind of wraps back into like East Tennessee doesn't have, unless you're in Knoxville or maybe Johnson City, there's not a very developed coffee culture. And so we started out being more high end, and that kind of fell flat, and have kind of revamped the menu. Because a lot of people's only experience with specialty coffee here is Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts or something like that. And and not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's like another whole world of coffee that's beyond that. And so I think our challenge is taking things that people are comfortable and familiar with, and then just kind of branching it out just a little bit, just open it up a little bit.
To keeping them comfortable. I mean, it's not overwhelming for people who don't know, but for the people who do know, they can go and take those new journeys and experiences that you guys, I think it's awesome. Because my wife, who, like I said, is not a huge coffee person, enjoys Snowbird, but I also enjoy Snowbird. I mean, because as a coffee person, if we go to Starbucks to get her pink drink and I'm left out in the cold because I'm kind of having me a cup of ashes, I mean, so that's what's cool about it. And I think that is something that I want to just commend you guys on, because it's something that I haven't seen. Because you have local spots around here, but they just do the basics. They do them well. I mean, they make good lattes. They have good espresso. But you guys have taken it that extra step to be like, oh, well, we want to give you a reason to come and a reason to stop by, compared to everywhere else. I think that's super cool.
Yeah,
I mean, a couple of our drinks too they're named after local people, like they're their drinks, like the Fluffy. Like when we did Cott County High School on Fridays, there was a kid that would come up and we were just doing a peanut butter mocha. And he was like, can I add caramel? And every week he would do it. And I'm like, if you get 10 other kids to come up and order this drink next Friday, I'll put it on the menu. And he's like, no, you won't. I'm like, no, I will. And that ended up being like a lot of people's favorite. And even the principal, she comes every Friday and she gets her Fluffy every Friday. And like the Allison, she was like, I want this kind of drink. And then she put it on Snapchat. And that day,
that's a whole story. Yeah,
it's such a good story. And that day she came in the morning and she was like, "This is a drink I want." Snapchatted it.
What was that?
Is that even a thing? Snapchat?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Is that
Yes.
like? Is that how you say that?
We're based like I would say we're boomers, but we're not.
But all day people would come up to the trolley and just be like, "I want this drink." And for almost a week, everybody was like hundreds of these drinks were gone out, and we completely ran out of white chocolate. And I could not get it in. And so I messaged her and I was like, "So you were the cause of us running out of white chocolate. Thanks for that. And as a prize, you get to name the drink." And she was like, I don't know. I'm like, all right. So it's just the Allison, because that was her name, is her name. I don't think she's changed it.
But to kind of add some perspective to that, I think we went through 11 gallons of white chocolate that week making these drinks. Like, it was absurd.
And I mean,
Like,
that's syrup, right?
Yeah.
That's the sauce. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, it was
you
crazy.
put what, like, I think how many ounces go into one of them? Like 1.5 ounces in one of them or something.
Gee, so that puts it into perspective.
it was like
how much was flying
Yeah.
out.
It was insane.
The biggest size would probably be about 1.5 ounces.
Yeah.
2 ounces if they wanted it extra sweet. But yeah, so there has been locals who've made their way onto the menu just because, I don't know.
That was an event.
It was so crazy.
That was an event. It was like, oh my God. But it was easy because you just made the same. Like literally every other drink was this drink.
Wow.
And so you're just like, just make a bunch of these, right?
Yeah.
Now you hear white chocolate mocha come through and you're like, what? What?
PTSD.
Did you say white chocolate mocha? Did I just hear what I heard? That's amazing. Well, and stuff like that, I think, goes into, why you've been able to fit into the culture and the communities so well. I mean, because the community is becoming part of the business. Mm-hmm. And it's, you can't get that at a Starbucks. You can't get that at a lot of other businesses. I think that's really, really, really cool. And I also think, and thank you for saving me the awkward segue from coffee into social media, but I think...
here we go.
Yeah. No, I think that shows the power of social media.
Yes.
I mean, in today's age, that shows, and it also shows, I think, that there is such a potential for social media where it is a little bit less educated in the coffee realm. Mm-hmm. I think there's a huge opportunity because coffee, you have the ability to dictate and be that teacher to the community and be their segue into real coffee and real, and I think that's so cool. I mean, you get to take a whole community on that journey. That is cool. I think that would be so cool. And then, how many people would have tried that drink if someone had not posted on their Snapchat story or whatever, or if they're not even exposed to it. I mean, there's a huge opportunity there, which is so cool to see. And I'm excited that someone's making waves out there to where people in Newport, people all over, or people in Morristown can now have the experience of having their first sip of coffee. They've had coffee all their life, but they haven't had Snowbird coffee. They haven't had coffee for the first time. And now they'll feel comfortable to do it. I think that's super cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. So where did the passion for coffee turn into the business, and has that affected your love of coffee at all?
We kind of hinted around this earlier. Like, I think anytime like your hobby becomes your business, like you kind of lose some of the magic. Mm-hmm. But then in other ways, like as I've grown the roasting side of the business, like one of the most fun things I do there is profile new coffee. Like the coffee that we're drinking right now is something that I was playing with last night. And so it kind of keeps that passion alive in that way, because it's like, even though it's like my livelihood, mm-hmm. there's also still artistry in it. So I get to have creative input and things like that. But I'm looking at you.
Why me?
Well, that's cool. I mean, because, what we do is pretty creative. Mm-hmm. And Dalton and I both started as hobbyists of some sort. And it's interesting. I think something that I've found helps me appreciate it is just like the perspective. Mm-hmm. I mean, because like it does get drained. It's like, oh, we got to get this edited out or whatever. Or, we've been editing on this. We've been editing like right before Christmas. We had a crazy time. And it's easy to lose perspective, but then you realize like, if you would have told me I get to make videos or create content or help people grow their brands every day for a living.
Yeah. Like that's another thing. Like I look back on where we started versus where we are now, and it's like, holy crap. Like we've got a long ways because I first got into roasting coffee. We had a barn in Indiana. It was an old farmhouse, 100-year-old farmhouse, 100-year-old barn. And I had a gas grill that I built into a coffee roaster, like Frankenstein into a coffee roaster.
Like a chicken roastery thing.
Yeah. And,
no way.
Had a little, it was a peanut roasting basket on a spit, and I powered it with, you ever seen the ice cream makers? They got the motors. All right. So, drum style coffee roasters have to turn at, I think it's between 40 and 50 RPM. And I racked my brain trying to find a motor that was affordable that would do that. And then I don't know how I even happened across one of those, but I clocked it and it was 44 RPM, and they'll handle a lot of torque from the ice cream, right? And so I jerry rigged that dude up on a rod, and that's how I roasted coffee. That's how I started this business, was on that coffee roaster, roasting 1 pound at a time and selling at farmers markets.
Wow.
And then it's like, look at where we are now. It's like, how did that even happen? And so
we moved here to be farmers.
Yeah. It didn't work out, though. I mean, we still have a farm, sort of.
Kind of.
Sort of. But
Ish.
That is so cool. I mean, so what did it look like for you? I mean, seeing that grow from just throwing this thing together, and then now it's like, wow.
I don't do change well. So when we moved out here, it was a huge leap of faith, because it was going from, a house, modern times, white picket fence, all of that, to being neither one of us having a real job, building a house from the lumber off of the property that we bought, and starting a farm, going to be off grid, self-sustaining, all of that. And then just going from that being our day-to-day to just being like, what are we going to do, because now farming isn't working, and just really stressing about that. And then we just kind of became the coffee and maple syrup people at the Dandridge Farmers Market. And that's just, everybody would just come up and get our maple syrup and get our coffee. They don't want anything else. And so literally his hobby became our business.
Yeah, like all this really come back to a midlife crisis, I think. Like, I mean, like I said, I worked in paper mills forever. My job ended where I was at. We had to move somewhere. We had always wanted to move to the mountains, and so we had to move. So we moved down here, and then I don't know. I guess we just like to be hard on ourselves. Like, we decided we were gonna. No.
He likes to be hard on all of us, and I just have to, hope that he takes care of us.
if all that wasn't enough, we were doing an off-grid farm, of all things, no power, no running water. I bought a sawmill. I started logging and cutting boards, and then we literally built a farm, from just our own efforts. And then that's where we live now. And I think everything would have been easy. I mean, you could just buy a house, right? It just would have been a lot easier.
It's definitely been an adventure. I'm not an adventurous person, but it's been an adventure that I'm glad that we have taken and we have done. It definitely makes things more difficult, because we were just talking about the social media. Like, there's times where we live out of service, so it's all Wi-Fi, and it's satellite Wi-Fi because we're up in the mountains. And
our only source of electricity is solar panels, which are kind of hit or miss. So
it makes it very difficult to do the social media and the constant connection that you have to do with vendors or your employees or anything like that, just to keep everything going. So for me, it's fun, but it's so stressful.
Yeah, like, beyond building this business, I mean, the last 4 years has been like epic for us, just just with everything, so
it's a dream. I mean, really. And what's funny is I try to tell this, like, and by no means do I ever consider where we're at, like, right now, as like the mountaintop or anything like that. But taking that leap, and people say, oh, it must have been so hard, or it takes a lot of courage to do that. It's like, it takes a lot of courage to take the leap. But after that, it's like, well, we got to make stuff go.
Yeah, you
It's
get
hard
in
work,
it. Yeah.
yeah.
You know, I mean, like, and then you have no other option. And I think that's something that with entrepreneurship and stuff like that people leave out is they think, well, you got to wake up inspired every day or whatever. Sometimes it's, I mean, and there is that, but sometimes it's just, we got to make ends meet. We got to get up and go.
Yeah,
and nobody's going to do it but us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, I think that is the big thing is like, if you have no safety net, you're going to pay a lot more attention to the steps you're taking, and you're going to make sure you get over that cliff where that safety net was. You're going to make sure you get over it as quick as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, like what you just said, that probably is a lot of the reason why we have been successful is because in our minds, I mean, it's just, you just got to make it work. You know, you just keep, you know, trying to figure out new ways, better ways, and you just make it happen. One of the things I think that's cool that what you guys get to do is to just go around and talk to a bunch of different entrepreneurs, because like, it's like, to be that way, you almost kind of have to have some screws loose, right? Like you're.
All my screws are there. You have all the loose screws. I'm just holding it all together.
You know what's funny though is every one that has loose screws, they have to have somebody there to keep it together and support them. I mean, and that is one. And you know what's funny that you say that is exactly because we have
You're
had the
welcome.
opportunity to talk.
Yeah, that is 100% our.
I mean, because there's the yin and the yang. I mean, yeah, it's the yin and the yang because one likes the security and likes it, likes straight line. You know, I like to know what's going to happen in the future, and then you have the other that's like, well, we could have this or whatever. And it just takes that balance. The Gatlinburg Brewing Company partnership. What does that look like? And
so we actually met Steve Wilson's the guy that owns that business, local guy. I think he's from Cosby, actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, super nice guy. Entrepreneur, has started several businesses. Just a really cool, down to earth guy, fun to talk to. We met him through our farm. At the time, we had a bunch of pigs we were trying to feed, and so I was reaching out to distilleries and breweries and stuff, trying to get their waste grains to feed to the pigs. And so that's how I originally hooked up with him, was getting their barley from the brewery. And then he found out that we roasted coffee and kind of started following our business. And then as we've grown, we've done some different things with them, roasting beans for them and doing events. They do a Don't Feed the Bears event.
Oh, cool.
I don't know if they did it last year because of COVID or not. I think they're doing one this year, though.
I'm not sure, but it was cold. That's all I remember when we did it.
Yeah,
It was
just
so cold.
trying to bring, because one of the problems with the tourists coming in the area is that they see bears and they don't realize that's a wild animal.
yes,
And so they try to feed them, and the bear's just like, oh, hey, something to eat, right? And so then you end up with this problem of bears running around downtown Gatlinburg terrorizing
saw
people.
one.
We saw one, and everyone's following it with cameras.
Yeah,
Trying to,
Yes.
people were running this bear down like it was trying to leave, and they're just chasing it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys, seriously.
yeah,
That is not a good idea.
it's bad. So him and I don't know all the other local businesses that are partnered on it, but a number of local businesses out there have started the Don't Feed the Bears just to try to raise awareness. Because unfortunately what happens is, I mean, the bears, I don't know if they relocate them or they put them down, or, I mean, if they attack somebody, they'll probably put them down. And it just, it makes a bad situation that doesn't have to exist.
yes.
So,
Well, that's super cool.
Yeah.
And it's funny, because like we went up to Gatlinburg a while. We only go around this time of year because it's just too crazy to go up there any other time.
Same.
But there's like a mom and her cubs. They were like in the trash or whatever. And people were trying to go up and touch the bears.
no, man,
It's
you've
like,
got to be crazy.
it's like, come on. I mean, and the closest thing I could equate it to is my wife and I went to Miami for our honeymoon, and there's iguanas running around down there, like big old, like an iguana as long as this table. And to be fair, I didn't run up and try to touch it, but I was like, oh, that must be like a blackberry is back home.
Yeah.
But it is a little bit different. Iguanas won't attack, I don't think, if you threaten the cubs. I don't know. I've never tried.
Iguana cubs.
Yeah. I haven't stumbled upon any iguana cubs, but if I do, I guess we'll find out. But yeah, I think that is a super important cause. That is super cool. What does the future look like for Snowbird and the brand moving forward and stuff like that?
Oh, I was going to interject there. One of our biggest challenges, I think, is just developing the coffee culture in this area. And so kind of this year, that's kind of our goal, is to get specialty coffee beans in places where people can buy them. We wholesale to different shops in the area already. We're going to try to expand that area of the business. Try to consult with other people looking to open shops in the area, and just try to build the coffee culture of East Tennessee. Because ultimately, I mean, a rising tide carries all ships. You know, if we can build the coffee culture here, I feel like our business will grow as a result of that. So.
Oh, for sure. And so to what degree do you think maybe education could be huge too, I would think, right? You know, just making people not afraid to get coffee beans from a local roaster. How do we make it at home? What kind of, am I going to be, you know, I'm not going to take this home and without an espresso machine, I'm not going to get a latte exactly how it, you know, just because I got the beans and I, you know, whatever, I got them pre-ground and I put them in a, you know, Mr. Coffee pot, you're not going to get a latte. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that's another huge thing is people just, well, one, they're intimidated probably a little bit. Yeah. And then two, you know, they love the coffee. Obviously they're buying it from the shop, but they just don't know how to do it.
Yeah. And then I don't know, it's like a, sort of a stigma, I guess. I mean, because East Tennessee is kind of rural, kind of more laid back, and you've got like this kind of foo-foo coffee stigma, right? And so I think it's our job to make that accessible to people and to explain it in ways they can understand it.
Well, honestly, really, like I think that would be so fun because you're showing people like they get to have that same experience that you had. That French
exactly right, because I used to be that guy. I used to be a shift work guy, just drinking out of Mr. Coffee, buying cheap stuff, and you know we would splurge on Kenya every now and then because that was my favorite.
Yeah, World Market coffee. Yeah, every once in a while we would.
Yeah, which I mean, those beans were probably in a can for 3 years before I bought them. Right, this wasn't specialty by any stretch of the imagination, but we say a lot. Specialty without snobbery, and
I love that.
And that's kind of what we try to be.
That is so that's perfect. And you know what's funny is it's funny to think back to in the beginning because I think everybody has that moment who was in coffee can remember when they weren't into coffee because nobody's drinking these crazy coffee drinks when they're first introduced probably. But I remember in my dorm room, my best friend, we were dorming together. He had a French press, and I was like, dude, are you doing anything with Barbary or anything? And he was like, no. And I was like, well, you've got one of those things that the barbers put combs in the barbicide right there. I thought the French press was one of those things. Do you know what I'm talking about at a barber shop? And they put like their scissors and combs in. And then I look back now. Every time I look back at my French press, I'm like, I like shudder a little bit because we were close enough friends. He like gave me a look. He's like, really?
Did you just ruin French presses for me?
I know. Yes. Well, now you know if you got an extra French press laying around, you can disinfect all your combs and your knives or your scissors and stuff. But
how is it that the French press is like the coffee gateway drug? Like that's like because that was my experience was having it out of a French press, and it sounds
honestly, and I think really it's one of the more. I mean, because it's a little bit more like you feel like you're doing something and you put a little bit more effort into it, but I think it's not as intricate as maybe a pour over. And stuff like that. And it's equipment. You don't need as much equipment either.
It's cheap to get into.
And I know we had to cleanse the area after I did it, but like you can if you have to, get a little blade grinder for $5 and a cheap French press. And then you can start there. And then you're like, okay, well, I looked this up. Why is it, tasting this specific way? I want to get a better grinder and stuff like that. I think it's affordable. It's easy to get into. And it's easy to use. You just need hot water, that, and a way to get your beans.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's so exciting because you get to be that gateway for people. And I mean, it's such a cool, fun industry. Like we were talking about before, it's so deep, you can get as involved or you can just go get your little latte at Starbucks if you want to, if you like that, or you do your Mr. Coffee pot. And like I do when I go with my family on both sides of the family on vacation, it's like I made coffee. I'm like, okay, sounds good. I'm like, got a little tear rolling down, it's like, this is good. It's good. Yeah.
Anytime I go home to Virginia and everybody makes coffee, I'm just like, oh gosh, okay. We'll do it.
Is Rob throwing up in the bathroom? I don't know. Where's Rob? It's breakfast time. I don't know.
And then you hate to be the guy that like carries his like little coffee toolkit with him, but it's like, man, I can't drink this trash.
It's the worst. No, another funny anecdote is when my wife and I did like this world tour, which is, it wasn't a world tour. We drove down to Miami, which was a crazy drive, and we drove back up through Myrtle Beach because my family was going to be staying in Myrtle Beach like that following week after. But there was like a lag time. So it was like 2 days where we stayed with her family or one of her aunts there. And I brought my little coffee, like with the French press and grinder and some beans.
Yeah.
And so they're all like making fun of me, like videotaping me during my coffee process. And so, but it's like, I wasn't, you don't want to be like the guy that's, you're crying while you're drinking the drip coffee, but you also don't want to be like, please move over your coffee pot while I get my French press out. And, excuse me, do you have a scale I can weigh my beans? And
Have you ever seen the videos of the people doing the coffee tastings?
Oh, with
like shove their nose on it and stuff. Like I've done that before one time just for more or less the experience of doing it, and it's just insane to me that there's people that do that. Like I did not find any value in it.
Really?
At all. Yeah, from a roaster, like. I mean, yeah, you can taste things in the coffee that it's I guess it's useful in saying, okay, here's this bean. What are some different flavors that are possible in this bean, right? But as far as like trying to determine how I'm roasting the coffee, like there was no value because it's like the coffee tastes so different when you prepare it that way versus if you prepare it in a French press or pour over or anything else. It's like you're not going to roast it the same way to do the two things, right?
Yes.
And I'm roasting coffee for people to drink, not for people to shove their nose in and slurp out of a spoon, right?
Yes.
And so
I'm aerating it.
Yeah, I didn't know if you'd ever.
No, yes. And, it is so cringe to think back. I'm like embarrassing myself on this podcast, like going through my coffee journey or whatever. But, I saw that and it was like, we got to introduce you got to let the coffee travel through your sinuses and stuff. And my wife, she was still a girlfriend at the time. So thankfully she's my wife now. So it didn't push her off too far. But, and I'm like slurping it. She's like, you will not be allowed to drink coffee anymore if you're going to be slurping it like that.
It's like
I
him.
slurp.
Oh my gosh, he'll get like a can of something, like kombucha, whatever, and he just sits there and slurps, and I'm just like, I will slap you.
If you just aspirate it a little bit, you get different flavors out of it.
Dalton, we're going to need to clip this because I'm going to have to play this on repeat at the house anytime because it's
slurp.
It's so
it's elevating. It elevates the experience.
I'm sorry, you can't elevate Dr. Pepper. I'm sorry.
Drink that.
There is no elevating it. It is what it is.
Try slurping your water.
It's water.
You have to let it travel through. And then it was just off to the races because then the YouTube recommended just goes crazy, and so then it's like,
oh yeah, they'll get you in there.
Yeah, how to chewing with your mouth open to get the full experience.
No,
you're like pushing stuff up through the palate.
We have derailed. Let's bring it back. We are not talking about that.
Yeah, just don't go down that YouTube rabbit hole because then you will not be allowed to consume anything in your house within any.
Apparently, I'm the one with the phobia or the disease because
there's a clinical
can't
term.
Breathe, so he has to chew with his mouth open all the time, and I'm like, I am literally dying right now. You are literally killing me.
So we have a farm. I had my nose broke by not just broke, like it was sideways
Shattered.
on my face. It was crushed. I had to get rhinoplasty to fix it. I had my nose broke by a ram. I got in a fight with him. Yes.
No, yeah, he got in a fight with a ram. Got in a fight. He was like, "This is a good idea.
This
is what I'm doing today."
Look.
Pretty cool. For being honest.
I will show you the picture later.
So I was locally famous for that for a little while, but somehow it got ram got turned into goat, and so it took. How long did I walk around with my nose sideways? Like a month or two before I could get into a place to get it fixed.
Whoa.
So once again, instantly recognizable. And it's like, oh, that's the guy that got his face smashed by the goat. It's like a local celebrity.
It was Ram. You should have seen this thing.
Like we met somebody somewhere in another town. It might have been doing farmers market gigs. And then it was like some stranger was like, oh, what happened to your nose? And I told the story and they're like, oh my God, I heard about you. And
no way. The story precedes you. Yes. That is cool. Well, what'd be cool is you can commission a local painter to immortalize that moment. You're super buff. You're got the ram
idea.
Dodgeball. If I don't know if you ever seen Dodgeball, he's like, yeah, I did that.
So you could just have the ram getting ready, and you'll have a 5-gallon empty bucket above your head.
Dude, I'm telling you, he had it coming. I was feeding the chickens. I had my back to the sheep, carrying a bucket of feed, and this dude rammed me right in the small of my back. I never saw it coming. I had my back to him. It felt like a linebacker just spear tackled me. I just face planted, feed goes everywhere. And so I stand up and he's just sitting there. You know, and so I punched him in the face as hard as I could.
It's a ram. It's a ram.
He's like 240 pounds. He's a large animal, right?
His skull is made to be hit.
Punched.
Yeah, and then he's like, and so then he starts doing the backing up thing that they do before they charge, and I'm just like, yeah, come on, you know? And so I'm in a melee ensued, and somehow I got my face broke. So I don't know if he kicked me or headbutted me. I was very concussed. I don't even remember what happened.
I was in the house, and all I hear is screaming, and I look out, and he's got this ram on the ground just punching it in the face.
Oh my God, Pete is going to hear this. This is going to be the end of it.
And like the ram gets up and like runs off, and he stands up and takes 2 steps, and he falls down on the ground, and just blood is just gushing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and he's like, I think I'm dying.
It was bad.
It was so awesome. I'm so glad that we lived through that.
Whoa.
Like I said, like this 4 years
just went
has
off
been
and
eventful.
That has to be like the coolest story that will be told.
Yeah.
Corey Ramsbane.
The ram just went off and ate all the chicken food off the ground.
He did. He was
And just,
unfazed,
like,
completely unfazed.
Literally unfazed.
And then I get a trip to the ER.
Anyways, back to the chicken food.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. I've been bit by a parrot once, but that's about as crazy as
What?
it goes. But yeah, that was like Miami. We're at this zoo, and you could go up to all the animals, and I was like, Gans, get my picture. And it was like, whoop, bop, bop, bop. And it was like just pinching me. But it's not nearly as cool as a ram, but animals and, you know, all that stuff. But yeah, that is cool. Well, I have to say, this is genuinely the funnest podcast I think I've ever done.
Dude, like we try to be interesting people, right? I mean,
Oh,
if nothing
yeah.
else, we at least want to be interesting. So
It's all him. Me, I'm just like,
Well, from now on, we're going to have like a questionnaire before people come on. It's like, have you had any interesting altercations with wildlife? And if so, you will be allowed to come on. But we'll have to like screen people and be like, and what was it? You know, was it livestock or was it a wild? You know, if it's a feral animal, that's even better. If we can get something crazy, that would be great. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Yeah.
And we loved highlighting Snowbird. If you haven't yet, check out the highlight we did. Stop by Snowbird. Your locations are, do you have the addresses? We can get them popped up on here too.
yeah, I do.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead and tell them. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the Newport address is 457 West Broadway in Newport, Tennessee. And Morristown is 400 East Economy Suite 1 in Morristown, Tennessee.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you for the amazing, amazing coffee. I'm about to chug this as soon as we finish. I had to be careful because Dalton was like, it's clanking the table. So
I forgot. I probably clanked a bunch of times.
No. You're good. You're good. So that's why I haven't been slowly sipping on it, but it is really great. Make sure you guys get the roasted coffee. Try it at home. Get you a French press. That's apparently the easiest way to get into
gateway
it.
drug.
Yeah, it's the gateway. It's the gateway into coffee. And thank you guys so much. Like, subscribe, and share. Thank you guys. We'll see you next time. Perfect. Man, that was fun.
That was fun.